first got this job, I asked a lot of smart agency people of what they think brand is, and everybody had a different answer. There's sort of no unifying agreement about it. And the best definition I think I saw was one that said the set of expectations, memories, and relationships taken together account for a consumer's decision to choose one product over another. And what's great about that is it effectively means the brand belongs to everyone. I'm a steward of the brand. But the days...
Who are your advisors?
Exactly. The days of the almighty and powerful CMO controlling the brand are over. If anything, you're lucky to just be able to influence it and express it in a way that people who really represent the brand know what you are and what you aren't.
Young Jazz.
What's up, Jesse?
What's up?
How are you?
I want to say, I didn't expect to see you.
Look, this is how we're starting the morning off today. I'm happy that we get to do this because, I've been talking about it on the air at night, 7 to 11, but now I get to be a part of it. So I'm excited to get all the news from you.
So much of it's been happening in the morning. That's kind of the way it's been happening. But, you're here.
Welcome in. Join me. I'm a part of the team too.
Said, man, we need your DNA on this. It's important. So, we've had some really good guests. We got another good guest today. We're going to talk branding and marketing and the difference between branding and marketing, of course. And there is a big difference. A lot of people don't think understand that. So we're going to get into some of that detail today. But before we do that, I think it's important because early on, I don't think people really knew that we were going to throw some money into this. This is part of this. And I hated to call it a contest, even though in many respects, obviously, there's a contest portion to it. I was kind of like, well, let's just get the information out there, educate. But I even hate the word education, but like contest, right? So we're giving away some money.
Oh, and money makes people move. That's what they hear there's a giveaway, they tapped in.
That's it. And the thing is with this, it's not just any kind of money. It's money towards your brand, your company, to try to give you a little bit more oomph in the radio space. I just got it'll help them put together some radio campaign ready commercials. And then the station actually met us halfway. So we're putting money in, station's putting money in, and we're going to get, I think, 3 different people, commercials on air with radio station. And I think that's going to probably lift some brands, get them a little bit more lift off, which is what's important right now. Because it's not just, buy black. We got to be building black, right?
Build black. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I think, folks need to know to enter this, they got to go to buildingher.com. There's a form they can fill out there. It's really simple, something small. But if you've got a business, you've been following along with the program, there's step by step inside the program. And then you can always message us if there was something you missed. Most of this stuff is posted online, though. But if you got questions, hit us up. And then at the end, people are going to submit a business plan. We're going to judge those business plans based on quality of the business plan. And if you really followed all the stuff, and not saying we're Shark Tank, I wish I had that kind of bread. I don't. But we're going to try to put some money behind 3 successful businesses and get them on air.
That's dope. I love that. That's a good cause. And, trying to help people out is what we love to do.
Yeah. And I think you guys right now, you probably have one of the loudest voices in, I would say, the Southern United States. Obviously Atlanta is a big market for Urban One, but Houston and the way Brock's Houston is just insane. So it's really sort of a chance of a lifetime for someone to have their brand out there that way and have y'all backing them and have us put some marketing, some of our marketing pizzazz, if that's what you want to call it, behind it. It should be pretty good.
Yes, indeed. Everything bigger and better in Texas.
That's right. So what you got popping today?
Gym, workout, go to work, just, doing some self-improvement stuff every single day, trying to get in a healthy routine of doing the stuff every day so it doesn't feel extraneous to me other days. You know what I mean?
I do. And since we're talking branding, before I introduce our guest and we let you go about your business, when people say the name Young Jazz, your brand, what do you want people to think?
I want people to know Jazz with the juice. Look, I got the juice for you on everything. Not just, I'm not just into music and artists and all that kind of stuff, but there's so many other things that are important to me, like mental health, especially over this last year, has been something that I've been tapped into more. Of course, helping out Black businesses and all that different kind of stuff. So I am a wheel of fortune of a lot of things that I focus on. Of course, I like to have fun, but at the end of the day, helping people out is what I pride myself on too.
Okay. You said a lot there, but I think I got it. That's the elevator pitch. And I think we'll let you get out. Before you go, I'm gonna bring on our guest,
Yes.
and I'll talk to her. We'll walk through so that she's kind of a legendary person in of herself. But Crystal had not, and let's see if we can swing her through. She was in the studio waiting to join, and we'll bring her on, and then Jazz, we'll get you out of here. There she is.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I am too. Finally, it's
Long time coming.
It was time for us to get to this point. You and I talking about really the meat and potatoes. This is the part that everybody thinks is so easy, though.
Yeah,
right?
They do. People think it's take a couple of pictures, post on Instagram, create a commercial, and people will show up and buy your product or take in your services.
Yeah. And then they wonder, they back there going like this, like, how come nobody's buying from me right now? How come I don't have as many customers as my competitor, the guys across the street or whatever? But before we do that, I want to talk about you, because I didn't, like your history is something else. I mean, Jack Yates.
JY, yes.
Yeah.
JY graduate.
Mm-hmm.
Home of Mighty Lions.
That's right. Yep. And I remember when I was at TSU, man, we'd walk over to that there was a Burger King, and then the donuts came. What's the donut right there on the corner? Yeah. We'd walk over to Shipley's, and the football players for Yates were just as big as TSU football players.
We did have a massive size football team.
Yeah, it was something else. Now from Yates, obviously you've done a lot of things. Why don't you tell the people some of the things that you've done and some of your history?
Woo, Yates. From Yates, literally, the crazy part about it, the day after graduation, I got on a plane to go to Europe.
Okay.
So, and my life pretty much started there. I knew, for me, a lot of people were talking about getting out of the hood, and I was like, I wanted to get out of this country.
Okay.
Just better myself, learn stuff. So from Yates, it went from moving out of the country, living off the grid for a few months before starting college. I came back, went to University of Houston, went back out of the country to go to school in London, and then came back in the country, then went back out and went to Africa. And so I did my undergrad degree consisted of me in and out of the country, going to school, and then started a career in politics. My first career was involved in the political aspect while I was a lobbyist and doing government relations for different nonprofit organizations. And from there, I always had health and wellness as kind of my backing. My focus on policy was always education and health and wellness. And I realized that I couldn't make the mark that I wanted to make by changing policy, but actually doing it from the practical end. And that's when I started my business. So it went from, trying to make a change from a government perspective to me feeling stunted in that process to now just starting my own private practice where I actually became the person, instead of talking policy, actually doing the work of the policy.
Yep. And I think that type of experience, because wisdom is what you get when you didn't get what you wanted.
Exactly. I tell people all the time, I became the teacher that I needed.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
The way it works. And there's a lot of people out there, they'll say, I need a mentor. I just need some help. And sometimes, and I said this on Tuesday's segment, but that, you can dream as far as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you just need to go, though, because once you get there, then you can
Yeah. You can teach that. And I tell people all the time, you can pick up a book, you can read all the information. I tell people, I feel like I have 1,001 degrees, but my degrees wouldn't have been valuable without the experience and the exposure and the circumstances which created all of that connected together.
Well, I know that you've got a ton of things. Like, I could talk to you about a million things, and the few times that you and I've talked, I'm always interested to kind of get your perspective on things. Today, we've got a little bit more of a narrow subject matter, which is branding and marketing. And what I find with so many people is they really don't understand or know the difference between them. And that's not a condemnation on people. everybody's got experience. Everybody's got some type of knowledge or whatever, but when it comes to the successful launch of a business or making a business do better, an existing business do better, create more sales, create more awareness of a product or service. Knowing the difference between branding and marketing is important. And I know there's some, discussion that you and I have today about some of those key differences.
Yeah.
And I'd love to try to, maybe get some stories in there and actually give people some real examples of things that they can, like, takeaways, something that they can actually do today with themselves or with their company that will make a difference in the way people view their product or service, or maybe change the shape of their funnel. I think so much of what we think of as sales these days is literally just closing people. So you think, well, engagement is getting somebody to buy, when I see engagement as more of a lengthy process now. And so, maybe step one of engagement is just getting somebody to know you exist. And so I want to share some stories with how, we literally had to create a brand. I don't want to give anything away, but with I Just Got Hit, I mean, you can't go straight to sales. When you deal with that, you've got to, and let's face it, everybody's not in a car wreck every day. So most of what I'm doing is not selling, and so, talk about, from your perspective, historically, both working for other people and also for yourself. And I guess maybe just, what you see as a difference, some of the key differences or a key difference between branding and marketing.
Well, the biggest difference for me is that your brand is really your story. I tell people all the time, when they start a business, I always ask them why. What's the why behind you wanting to start the business? Because really say, I want to make money. And and I always tell people, when you say I want to make money, that's why I'm starting a business. That's the marketing piece. But you have to understand the why. So why do you want to start the business outside of the money? That is your brand. So your brand is your story. What were the circumstances that led to you to even think about the business? That is your brand. And that's where you build from that part. And that's where you get your engagement. And then making the money and all that other stuff becomes your marketing. It's just a tool to help people understand what that story is and get that story out there. And if you don't have a story, it becomes an epic fail. Because people can't relate, or people don't understand why they need to buy your specific product or engage in your specific service outside of someone else's, because they can't attach to your story. Yeah. And that's the biggest part. So understanding your brand is your story. Marketing is how you give your story out to the people.
Yeah, how you share it. Now, from a resource standpoint, I guess I would say young people, but it's not always young based on age. Sometimes it's just young based on experience. So let's say newcomers to the entrepreneurial world will have sort of a belief system that, okay, so I said I froze for a second. So we may kind of have some of these little technical glitches. If we do, then just let me know. I need to repeat something either from the studio.
Yeah, your audio was fine. The video, a little glitch, but
okay. Fine. So not realizing that in the world of resources, time is money. So and they'll think, okay, well, I'm just starting up right now. This business is something that I'm just getting going. I'm not spending any money. And I'm saying, hey, you're spending time, and that is money.
Yes.
And so, of those two resources, time and money, either way you're spending. So that's one of the reasons they say pay attention, because you're paying with your attention to something, or you're paying with your money to something, or both.
Yeah.
And so, as a person, I think once I've gotten into the branding and the marketing world, is realizing that there was a time to pay for one and not the other. And there was a time to pay for both at the same time, and how we allocated resources to both from the standpoint of customer service, or public awareness of who you are. So that story that you're talking about, like, you have to have your story, what it is that you intend, or why you're doing what you're doing, your why. So much of what we do as creating brands for our businesses is literally a consistent storytelling that you're always spending on building your brand. Whereas I see marketing as something that you do more strategically. So I can market to you on Fridays alone, or I can market to you, say, out of home. So I could have a billboard, and that's a marketing piece. And I'm spending on that. And we're looking at traffic counts, the number of cars going by the billboard. and we're saying, okay, these are people that we're marketing to. Now I'm branding to them as well, but your brand is how you answer the phone, or your brand is how you handle customer service, or your brand is, how you get involved with a issue in the community, per se. So talk maybe a little bit about like some of the ways that you see companies or you yourself have sort of said, okay, when you're spending on marketing or you're spending on branding, what's the approach to spending on branding, for instance, over a longer period of time, you think?
Well, the good part about it is that branding initially can be spent with time and not actual money per se, because you need to be able to dig into what are those memories, those relationships, those circumstances, those expectations that created your story. Because if you don't develop that story, the market will develop it for you. So you want to create your own story.
Yeah.
And so it's really about spending that time creating and crafting and drafting that story and telling that story over and over and over out to your audience, to your public. So in all the various platforms that you have available. So your time will be first spend your time spending on crafting that story, and then you can market and be strategic about marketing that story to different platforms depending on who your client avatar is. So who are you marketing to? So now it looks like more so like, okay, I need to use radio in this specific radio station because I'm looking for this target audience. And that becomes the marketing of that particular story. And you may have to spend money behind it. But you can also do a couple of things that are also time and not necessarily money. At the same time that you're doing radio, you could be doing social media, creating blogs, writing white papers, getting on TV, and making collaborations. For me, the biggest part was my background was in strategic partnerships, because I tell people the cool part about being, a girl from Third Ward, coming from Jack Yates, is that I use what people would look at as a disadvantage of not having resources as an advantage. And I looked at the people around me who had the resources and who I can link to and connect to. So I use that same theory going into business. Who are those strategic partners that I can link and connect to and create my story and get my story out there to that platform at a larger audience? That would take me time and energy, but not necessarily the dollars, because I may not have that particular resource or that particular connection.
Yep. And
So
now,
start.
Now, is it safe to say that if you had to say, write a paragraph, for instance, about who you are as a company, that the entire paragraph could be, or what you're doing, so your go-to-market type thing, that the entire paragraph is literally branding from the first capital letter all the way to the very final period or exclamation point? All of that is branding.
All
but
of
that
it.
somewhere in there might be a marketing section or a sentence or whatever that is literally marketing, a call to action or a specific call out of some type that is purely marketing. And what I find is that people literally don't spend a lot of time really trying to cultivate or turn that paragraph into something that's more like a conversation. It's almost like the cat that just shows up at the beach with the little tiny banana hammock on and walks out on the beach and then says, I'm looking to marry somebody. That's not the way these things work.
Yeah. No.
There's a real process to this, and some patience that's evolved with it. The other thing I think, based on what you said just now, because I'm hearing a lot of personality with what you're saying, you're bringing your personality and sort of your history into your brand, and as you cultivate. But I don't know, and this is more of a question, but we can have this conversationally, right? Because to what extent is it safe to have your brand be purely your personality? Or are there ever times where you want to say, hey, look, I know that's who you are as an individual. That's not a fit for this market or this brand. Like, you don't want to put that out there. Not that you're going to hide it, backseat it, but essentially, when it comes to branding, is everything that you are as a person safe to put out there as part of your brand development?
Yes and no. Like you said, it's all about timing. So timing becomes extremely important for that. It's really important to know who your client is. And so a lot of people when I was really heavy of talking about fitness with individuals, a lot of people questioned why I wasn't posting pictures on Instagram in the, in the little bra tops and the tight shorts and showing off my body. When I said, well, my client, I'm not looking for the client that wants a specific body image. And so it wasn't crucial for me to, at that time, to, show my body image to anybody. I was looking for, my client was a person who's dealing with chronic illness, and how I look and what my body looks like and telling that part of my story of how I got fit is not crucial to that particular client. So that information and that about my story can be left out.
Gotcha.
And so it's really about understanding what connection that you're trying to make with that client. And if your personality, that part of your personality is not tied to their connection, it's no need for you to allow that information to be out there.
Gotcha. So, and I think, you and I talking earlier said, branding is literally who you are.
Yes.
And marketing is how you communicate that who you are. But it also, I think, would have to come back and say, but you still need to be selective as you're determining who you are. Because let's face it, I may be more than 5 things, as a person. Maybe I'm more than 5 things. But maybe only 3 are relevant to the prospect. And maybe only 3 are really going to be, the things that they're going to weigh as they're trying to determine who it is they're going to do business with. We call that, at least I think of it as situational awareness. I've enjoyed a lot of sales experience. So I'm like out there, I'm in the room, I'm having to talk to this person. And even today, if my wife and I, we'd have get-togethers or we'd be somewhere, if I was at a work-related event, I always sort of felt this need to make sure everybody in the room felt right.
Yeah.
Sort of, what was going on. But not everybody has that type of situation.
But that's the best sales pitch, right?
Yeah.
Because then now people gravitate to you. I tell people the best sell you can get is when it comes to you. Because you making people feel comfortable or open and relatable, and you actually utilizing your brand to actually bring the sale to you.
Yes.
So the marketing becomes natural.
And now it seems to me like when it comes to branding, sort of, and on a more personal note, when you're talking about, say, Black women, there's this tendency to want to, I guess I'm making a word up, but that, if you don't feel European enough, then who you are is not necessarily a fit. And I think those walls are starting to come down, but obviously there's a long way to go. And so what we found, I think, was even, and again, then it's like any quote unquote, stereotypical female characteristics should not be part of your brand. And quote unquote, male characteristics were accepted. And I feel like those walls are coming down too. But I guess, do women still need to be mindful of that as they go out to the market? Because you could always do the sort of, hey, I'm keeping it real and I give 0 blanks about who does business with me or doesn't. I'm going to be who I am. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do business with me, fine. You could take that approach. But the other approach is, no, I will sort of manipulate this situation a little bit, get your business, and then change your view and make you an advocate.
And that's been my approach. I tell people, nutrition, it's an industry where 2% of the industry is Black.
Yeah.
I mean, 2% of the nutritionists out there are Black.
Yeah.
And so I entered into a space where the people who did the work that I did not look like me, but also my clients, the people who come to me don't look like me. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was not so much like, oh, if you don't want to do business, fine. I did strategically operate a certain way because what I wanted you to do is to see me for who I am. Mm-hmm. And then I can come in and probably change your perspective of what you think of a Black woman.
Got it.
So it wasn't like, yeah, I'm Black, I'm a queen, you gonna do business with me. And it was Black this and Black that. I never marketed my business like that. I'm a Black business. But I mean, because they look at me and they know I'm a Black business. Yeah. And I didn't have to, put it out there in material and, beat people over the head with it. But at the same time, that made people feel comfortable and come into a space with me where then I can show them truly a different, a different side to what they probably already had made up in their mind, what a Black business should look like or how they operate or what they do, or the lack of knowledge of what they thought I could, handle and be a part of.
Sure. Yeah, because there's a lot of preconceived notions. People that they've already got an opinion of you when they see you, and whether people know it or not, I mean, that's part of what they process. Their interpretation of you. They see you, they make this, oh, this is a Black female or this is a Black male. I've seen the difference if I walked into a jewelry store, for instance, casual, shorts, t-shirt, some J's or something, the service I get versus when I walked in a suit. It's no different. And I don't think that people realize that some of what you're branding needs to be walking in a suit. And I know that sounds funny. You go, no, I should get the exact same service when I'm in shorts and a t-shirt and some J's. Yes, you should, but this is different. We're talking about this sort of continuous process of winning people over with this brand. And there's a certain formula for that. And let's face it, we're perfectly fine being manipulated by brands all the time. Mainstream brands manipulate the ish out of us. All the time. But we act like it's us going too far if we've got to manipulate them. No, I'm going to keep it real. I'm not going to change shit about who I am as a person. Well, dog, look, there's this thing called mutually beneficial manipulation. In my world, I'm like, I'll manipulate you, you manipulate me back, and we'll both be better because of it.
Yeah.
And I think, branding, there's a part of that with branding that's important. Now, what about, from your perspective, what comes first? Because I noticed that there's a lot of people out there, obviously, once you essentially know the difference, which, we've got a worksheet. I know you and I kind of went back and forth, and we'll put a worksheet up today for everybody. And we're going to repost a lot of this stuff, content from this session over the coming days. But once somebody gets to the point where they can actually differentiate between that's marketing, that's branding, or that's a little bit of both, and they feel like they've got an understanding of that. Let's say somebody's just starting up. What's first, branding or marketing, and why? And from
well, branding is definitely first. That's the foundation. You don't build a home without establishing your foundation first. So branding is definitely first because you can't market something that you can't tell a story behind.
Okay.
So like I said, it's your story. Your brand is your story, your why. And you won't have anything to market like, chocolate. You can't market chocolate that someone's never tasted without understanding the story behind the chocolate. So you definitely have to have that branding comes first. And I'm a firm believer that you push branding all the way to branding starts to look like marketing. And just in my personal experience, I didn't even use paid media until the 5th year into business.
Okay.
So I use my story, me telling my story over and over in different spaces created a clientele base for me. And that became a foundation. And then it became a word of mouth because then those individuals who were a part of the story and had a feeling of what it was to do business with me and work with me and get services and products through me, then told their friends. And it was just this spinoff of, a word of mouth situation. Then when I got to the space of growth, and I think that's where it's important. So you can do that for so long, word of mouth works, but only for so long. When you get ready to grow your business to that next level, that's what marketing became very pivotal. Then I had to really understand like, okay, I have all these clients, but what's my specific market now that I have a base, what does that base look like? What are the age groups? What gender? What are their socioeconomic background? And then I was able to create a marketing plan based on that foundation. So once you lay that really good, solid foundation, you can spend your time then doing probably less market research because you already have that base, and then build from there and actually go into your actual marketing plan from once you have that base of your branding set up.
And when say a company's out there or you branding, do you optimize over a period of time? I mean, I was always under the belief, or remain sort of under the belief that brand, like for instance, who I am is also the positions I take on certain issues.
Yeah, it develops over time.
Okay.
And it changes.
Yeah.
My business is very different. I mean, it's this year be 10 years.
Okay.
It's very different from what it was in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And so my brand has grown and developed with me as a person, because my brand is who I am, and I've grown, I've developed, and I've had different stages. So I think your brand also go through those stages with you. And that's important to know, that although it's something you're doing all the time, it might not necessarily remain the same either.
So
that's important to know.
And I guess sort of like maybe a more like real life example of this is I feel like Nike markets shoes,
Mm-hmm.
sports apparel. Nike markets sports equipment, but Nike brands that supporting equal pay for women. Nike brands supporting Cap's ability to kneel, or freedom to kneel. Nike brands where it stands on George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
And on the justice, equality in the justice system. And that's all, from my perspective, brilliantly branded. But these are things that they couldn't forecast. They couldn't say, okay, we know that these are the social justice issues that we're going to face this year. They just knew one or two would happen, and that relatively quickly they were going to need to take a position on it. And they got out in front of it. A lot of people, I remember listening to one of the broadcasters on CNBC when Nike came out and essentially put Cap in a commercial when he was kneeling. And one of the broadcasters on CNBC said, okay, well, for me, that's it. I'm telling my wife we're getting rid of all the Nike gear we've got and we're going with Under Armour.
Yeah.
And I remember buying Nike stock that very day, because of how I was like, his beliefs were inconsistent with my beliefs, which was me saying that Nike's brand was something that I affiliated with. I didn't affiliate with their marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I affiliated with their brand.
Yes.
And what they were saying as a brand. And oh, by the way, moral of the story, Under Armour proceeds to go down and go up.
It's linked.
Yeah, it's linked, right? So, and I remember having a conversation with somebody going, look, I don't know if Cap can change this stock price. I mean, let's face it. Nike had all the greatest tennis players. Nike had greatest soccer players. Nike had Jordan. Nike had the Williams sisters. Had all that. Tiger, best golfer, had all of that. And the stock performed, but it wasn't amazing. It was performed. But for whatever reason, the timing of that shift in their brand happened to coincide with Nike stock nearly doubling. Over a year and a half. And I think that guy's probably, Under Armour went down. Of course, they tried to get a relationship going with The Rock and all that. But the point I'm making is I think wise branding is literally, like you said, the house, the foundation. So maybe branding is that foundation. Marketing is you maybe, lighting the house up. So it's the lights around the house that are highlighting what you've done with marketing, but branding is really the house. And I'm just not sure that everybody's making that connection on social. What do you think?
In this current business climate, like your personal brand can serve as the best protection for the things that we can't see or control.
Mm-hmm.
And so that having that personal brand attached to it was that armor, no pun intended, of protection for Nike.
Mm-hmm.
It create, in situations where who knew that them going into the social justice era would be a good fit, and then things would happen like COVID and business are tanking and all that. So it really served as a protection for them against the unseen, the uncontrolled factors that were coming down the road. Mm-hmm. And that's important for you to understand that's what branding gets you.
I think because this is one of those things that like we could go on and on and on and on about, and it's and even with the marketing side of things, one of the areas that I want to get into when we eventually, and I'd love to, maybe, I don't know if it's a podcast, I don't know what it is we do, maybe it's a clubhouse or something like that, but when people are just starting out and I see, because let me get to the point, consistency.
Mhm.
Everybody talks about you just got to be consistent. You got to be consistent. And I go, yeah, but you got to be consistent with something that's actually working. One, two is you got to be consistent with something that doesn't make people rethink who you are.
Yeah.
And so the you go, yes, here's one, and now I follow up because I'm consistent with two, and then
Mhm.
here's three because I'm consistent. So here's three, but those are disjointed or disconnected. I'm not making a natural connection between these three marketing pieces that I just put out. And so now the public has to figure out every single time who you really are. And I think we could do a lot more talking about that,
Yes.
about the consistency that's required so you make that connection. Because what I've heard from you today, essentially, and consistent with what I believe is once you put a brand out there, see, keep in mind that while the Kaepernick stuff happened and Nike is Nike and it's owned by the shareholders, Nike held a place essentially at that moment in my heart. So it's
Mhm.
no longer their brand. It was my company.
Mhm.
And so I saw it as something of me.
Yeah.
And so if we are creating and building brands and then marketing opportunities to tell people what we've created, then those got to be consistent because it's now mine. And you're only screwing with something that's mine if you don't market it right. So maybe we need to be having, we do another session or two where we actually talk about that in more detail. What are your thoughts? So you see somebody, they start off and they've got this as their social media handle on this platform. This is their social media handle on this platform, this on this platform. And then their .com is completely different, or maybe it's a .net or a .co, or it's got a hyphen in it, or it's got this. And then over here, LinkedIn, you can't, find them. And so they end up being disconnected that way. That's one way that it happens. But maybe talk a little bit about that, like that consistency.
One is that people get confused, and they're not gonna. It's really hard for people to then buy into your service or your product in a state of confusion.
Mhm.
And I tell people, and the reason why I use my name so much, like my name is everything across the board. People's like, well, what's your handle? I was like, Crystal Hatnot, no matter where you go. What's the website? crystalhatnot.com. Like, so, because I knew my name, one was so, and my story was so tied to my business that I decided to use my name.
Yeah.
On everything. And people, and when I first started my business, I literally put basically a poll out on Facebook. And I was like, when you hear Crystal Hatnot, what comes to mind?
Mm.
And I think about those things like when you hear, I just got hit, what comes to mind? So it's just like really, you have to create a situation where people are not trying to find you in different settings. And people have, if you want people to buy in and get your product or think of you when they're in a situation, when they're in an accident, when they're looking for health advice, they have to have one go-to. And if you're under various names and distinctions, they can't figure out even where to go to get the service that they may need at that moment. And so the consistency is everything. And you want people to be in a position of a need for what your product or your service. And when that situation comes, they automatically, without thinking, think of you because of the consistency. And now that they had it, and that's branded in their head when something comes up. And so it's a no-brainer. So you don't really have to do major marketing and all that, because guess what? You've already created a situation where when people get in a certain position, they're going to automatically think Justin. They're going to automatically think Crystal when they have that need that pops up. So that consistency is everything, because you eliminate that go-to if you have no consistency.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes all the sense in the world. I hadn't really thought about it that way, that it's really literally real estate in their brain.
Mm-hmm.
Like you own some real estate. So as we talk about that foundation, branding is the foundation, but the real estate that it's sitting on is really up here.
It's all
not,
mental.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So you eliminate that whole doing all the most and the extra just because you did one thing right, and that was be consistent.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to something very quickly, and I know we need to wrap this up, but look, you said you did a survey on Facebook. So you asked people what they thought. I mean, did you go into that with an expectation of what you were going to hear from people, or sort of, bias, like what you wanted to hear? And then to what extent did you hear something you didn't expect, and how did you respond to it?
So for me, it was creating, like, what I didn't want people to do is get confused about, because when it came to health and wellness, there's so many services, there's so many products that can be out there.
Mhm.
And what I did want to do is be the person who had all of these services and all of these products to offer under my business. For me, it was really serving a purpose. As when I started my business, I needed to know what specific service that I need to offer first. Maybe it'll grow into other services or products later, but
Right.
what first do I need to do? And I chose a service first because I tell people I came from a service background. So
Okay.
I use service as my first thing to offer in my business instead of products. And I went to that. I was like, so what, when you think Crystal Hatnot, what comes to mind? So that's going to be the service that I offer first, because I don't have to worry about marketing that service now, because everybody knows that. So I'm already off the bat going to make money off of this service, because that's the expectation that people have when they think of me.
Mm.
And you have to give the people what they want. You can have an amazing service, but if it's no need for that service, you're not going to make any money.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the truths. People don't want to accept that truth. They think they've got it right and don't want to give in to the fact that it's actually the market that has to agree with you.
Yeah.
It's not you. You can agree with you all day long, but if the market doesn't agree with you, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And they don't want to see that. What do you think is what are the chances that you and I might be able to get together and do some more of this type of stuff down the road? Because I really think if we could.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right.
This has been good. It made me feel like I'm back to being a professor at TSU again.
You didn't tell us all of that story. We got to get into depth there. I did a little time at TSU, and I tell people all the time, because this is health related.
It was doing time too, that's for sure.
There was my GPA. There was a time, I guarantee it was a few times, that my GPA was identical to my blood alcohol level. I swear. And I functioned, I was a functional, person in that situation. But anyway, seriously, I'm glad.
I've been in my 20s as well.
Yeah, I think we all been there.
Yeah.
But I do want to, I think, your story, your marathons and, just your history at TSU, there's just so many other things that we didn't get a chance to touch on today that I want to sort of, bring those things in and have some of those discussions. And when we put this document out today, we'll put your contact information on there as well. So, and your website, so that people want to reach you, crystalhatnot.com and all of that, so that they can reach out to you. But I think it might be important for us to maybe touch on those, say 5 to 7 things, and we can run through them quickly, that people have to know the differences between marketing and branding, or 5 and 5 marketing rules, 5 branding rules, something like that. Let's get that out to people, because I think it's going to be helpful for those CEOs that are in the making right now out there. Very important.
So important.
Well, I appreciate you. I'm glad you came on, and we'll get something out here. So appreciate you, and I think we'll wrap this up. And folks, look, we'll put Crystal's information up. We'll put a document out there that sort of highlights some of the things we talked about today, but also some of the rules that she and I wrote over the last couple of days. We'll put those on the website, share them with everybody. And Crystal, we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
All right, be good. Thank you.
Have a good one.